Mom Who Knows Nada. My name is Brianna, and this is the Mama Knows Nada podcast. In honor of Father's Day, I thought it would be a fun little treat to interview the man I call Dad, aka the sperm donor to my mother, and see what he has to say about his life with adult kids, as well as being a grandpa. So, hey, Dad.
Hello, daughter.
How are you?
Introduced as only you can.
I know. Classic and classy. What can I say? Did you want to be a dad?
Honest answer, I had no plans to be a father whatsoever.
Did you talk to my mother before that or no?
When we got married, we were going to wait 5 years. Somehow that turned into immediately. So much for managing the birth control.
Yeah, right. You guys know.
Literally got pregnant like 2 weeks after we got married.
Yeah.
With your sister.
And there she is. So.
Yep. But to reiterate the answer to your question, I watched some of your podcasts, and much like you, and I saw your podcast with Kim, was being a parent was not central to my focus at that point in my life.
At 20, I would assume not.
No.
Well, I mean, I wasn't married at 20, so there's your first mistake.
You're smart. That just makes you smarter than me. But
anyway, so watching your wife, who at the time you did love, at least to some varying degree, that's a different podcast for a different day. But watching her become a mom, what was that like for you?
It was all very strange, and it all happened very fast. So you kind of got swept along on this roller coaster ride that you weren't really prepared for.
Yeah.
And if I can kind of step back a little bit, not that this is the direction of the topic, but my advice now, 40 years later, would be to everybody: don't get married young. Seriously, don't have children that young, early 20s and earlier. You don't know who you are yet. You don't really know what you want yet. I mean, you're talking about we're getting married at a time where some kids are still in college changing their majors, you know? You're not a fully formed adult human being yet. And you don't even understand some of the choices, or a lot of the choices that you're making, and the consequences that they have, and how far-reaching those consequences can be.
Yeah. Difficult.
So grow up first. Figure out who you are and what you want before you decide who you're taking with you.
Yeah, do you ever really grow up though? I think it's just a scope of
maybe you don't grow up.
Maturity.
You should copyright that term, functional immaturity. That's good.
Sometimes I'm really good. Some days I'm really good.
Put that on a t-shirt. That's a good one.
Okay. Hashtag that.
Yeah.
What? Okay, now then I was the youngest, obviously, and so when you're in it and you have 3 kids, I guess there was 3 under 4 at one point in time, right? Like,
yep.
Rita's the oldest, and I was the baby, so she turned 4 just after I was born. Like,
yep.
What did you love most about that when we were little? What was fun for you?
Because you were all crazy. You were all. Especially you and your brother, you guys just laughed all the time. Everything was funny, constantly running around giggling, getting into stuff you weren't supposed to be getting into. You were to say that you were mischievous would be the understatement of the year. And it was funny because you just never knew what you guys were going to do. There was something to laugh at like all the time, you know? And one story I'll relate, I know you've heard me tell the story 100 times. The one day when, I heard your brother and sister screaming, and I went outside, and they were on the porch, and they're like, "Oh, say Brianna, there's a snake. And look out in the yard, and there you are. I think you're 2 years old with your little yellow sundress on there, nose to nose with like an 18-inch garter snake, just like sticking your tongue at it because it was, sticking its tongue out at you. And I'm like, funny stuff like that all the time. And, I turn around and look at your brother and sister, like, look at you sissies. You're standing up there on the porch, and your little sister's out here, not afraid of the snake. Good Lord. But all the time.
I remember, the one time I put a spider in Jason's face.
That was funny. To me, it was funny. It wasn't funny to him, but that was fun.
He screamed like a girl. Like, not, that was a bad thing. He screamed like a sissy, not like a girl.
He
'Cause
doesn't like
obviously-
bugs.
Obviously, I was the girl throwing a bug in my brother's face. So
He
what a
does
wuss.
not like the spiders or the insects.
To this day, I
To this
actually make Dominic do all of the critter redisposition. At this point in time, I just don't geckos. Ugh. No, thank you. So yeah, we were fun and we were cool, and some things never change because we're still mischievous. And I mean, I'm fun, but that's me. Well, not to my husband. I'm a pain in the ass, but that's a different story. But what was challenging about having the three of us so close in age?
I remember that for a few years there were a lot of diapers, a whole lot of diapers. And it's the logistics of managing all that. You just figure for the first 21 years of my life, I did whatever I wanted to do. Now all of a sudden at 25, you got a spouse and you got three little ones, and it doesn't really matter much what you want at that point in time. You've got to take care of all that. And then you got to start thinking about long term, about getting your education, and because my few biggest things from the time you were young was teach you to be self-reliant and independent. Try to give you a better platform to launch your life from than what I had. Because I came from a very small, closed and closed-minded rural area.
Yeah.
Where they wondered why you'd ever want to leave the town. But leave it, we did. And I'm like, I want my kids to see more of the world than that, and to have an idea that this is a lot bigger than them. But also for them to have the confidence to go out in the world and be unafraid to travel and go places and do things. And that seems like that's worked out pretty well. Trying to find you guys what continent you're on or what time zone you're in has been an adventure for the past 15 years. Yeah. You know what? I'm proud of that, because you guys are unafraid to pick up and move across country and do whatever you wanted to do. To me, that's something to be lauded. The more you travel, the more people you meet, the more experiences you have, the wiser you become. So, yeah, good done. Well done, daughter. Well done.
I've lived in every continental time zone in the United States. How about that? Fun fact.
Some of them twice.
Yeah, some of them twice. Some of them 3 times. I think that's really important. That's something we try to instill in Declan to this day. He, especially with his upbringing and where his father's from, and having an understanding that all cultures and perspectives are unique, and to appreciate those differences is something we even try to do for him now. You mean, how much we've traveled with him. So yeah, I think that's the greatest gift you can give anybody, is the experience of a different way of doing things, because we're so closed off in a way to our own and unique experiences, and this is the way of life. But if you read any maternity book, just for example, they will take you back to tribes in Africa and how they do it in Middle Eastern cultures, and how they do it in South America, and they go through all these different gamuts of what it means to co-sleep, and how in certain cultures that's perfectly normal, but how in our culture it's taboo. So it's a good perspective to know that there is no one right way to grow a human, I
think the most important thing to learn how to do in life is communicate. And it's hard to communicate with people you don't understand. And until you go there and see how their life works, and then you go, oh, that's why they do that, and then you can understand. Which is why, I basically had 2 requirements of you guys as you were growing up. I said, you got to take a second language in school, and you got to learn to play a musical instrument. You got to take music lessons. Why? Because those are 2 other forms of expression. You're learning to speak to people in their native tongue, and you're learning to communicate your thoughts and emotions through music. So you become a more expressive human being. At least that's my opinion. And seems like you guys have gotten a lot of joy out of music, and
oh yeah,
Lord knows you've mangled the Spanish language for many years now.
Oh yeah, and my alter ego. Don't forget about Blanca.
I've not forgotten Blanca. Nor has anyone who's met Blanca forgotten her.
Yeah, she comes out with a few glasses of wine. Woo! Yeah, she's fun.
Hola.
¿Cómo estás? Yo soy latina en mi corazón.
Muy hilarioso.
Sí, es la verdad. Yo trato, pero mi vocabulario es muy limitado.
Sí.
Y entonces, so you got divorced from, God, my mom, how old am I? 20 some years ago? 25 years ago?
25, 26 years ago.
A long time.
That's a long time ago.
As you're going through all that and navigating that different situation after being together for like 15 years, what was the most difficult part of that whole process?
Trying to make sure you guys were okay. Because it was not necessarily an amicable divorce. I'm not going to go into all the bloody details of all the family
Yeah, please don't.
carnage that happened from that, because that's not a podcast. That's a mini series in and of itself. So like basically my thought process was, I can't control what she's going to say or what she's going to do or what certain other people in the situation we're going to say or going to do. So all I basically do is keep my mouth shut and focus on earning a living to take care of you guys, making sure I took you places and did things with you, making sure you had food to eat and stuff like that, that you got into the good schools and got an education, and the rest of it, you kind of got to let just roll off your back. And I think a lot of times when people get divorced, they get caught up in all the drama and they forget that the first thing you need to do is make sure your kids are okay.
Yeah.
You know me, if I can overlook a lot of stuff, but I can't overlook somebody who can't get their shit together to take care of their children. That is, to me, is a big problem. You know, and you know, I go off on a tangent here for a second. It's like, when you're thinking about getting married and thinking about having kids, I'm just going to tell you this. It's not going to go the way you think it's going to go. There are going to be things for which you can never be prepared. I mean, I was not prepared for your sister to be born 10 weeks premature and be in a hospital for the first 10 weeks of her life and have all that stuff. Was not prepared for all that stuff. I didn't go into my adult years thinking, I think I'll get divorced 3 times. That was not part of the plan, right? So yeah, poor choices and, you know, people, you know, pretending to be things they weren't and things like that. I was not prepared to have a child who would get an incurable disease that would affect all of our lives. And you literally don't know what next week holds at this point in time. So, you know, I think people get married and everything is, hey, it's wonderful and bliss. We're going to have this wonderful life. A certain percentage of families, something bad's going to happen to your kid, one of your kids.
Yeah.
Something, half of your marriages aren't going to make it. So I preach pragmatism now. Before you make a decision about a big decision about having children or even who you're going to, you know, try to spend the rest of your life with, better have your act together. Better think it. Don't just feel. Think it through.
You know, I joke about that with Sam all the time. I'm like, oh, are you really going to make it 40 years? I could have a whole other life, you know? Just, you know?
That poor man.
So I mean, if you plan it right, people, you could have the best of both worlds. I'm just saying. I'm kidding. I'm kidding, but you did tell me to always like maybe for like, you know, if I was smarter, I would have gotten married when I was 25 in LA and by one of those millionaires, because then I would have set myself up for success with a second marriage. But I didn't. I wasn't that smart. So maybe don't listen to me.
Now you ended up marrying a Brit.
God, everybody makes mistakes. So anyway,
moving right along.
Well, what your answer was actually kind of a good parlay into the next question about what's it like having adult children now, because like as you said, my brother wasn't diagnosed with his multiple sclerosis until he was 29 years old. So that was almost 6 years ago, 7 years ago. How
7 years ago.
Be? Yeah,
could be 37. Yeah.
Oh God, yeah. So that's kind of like a twofold question, because in a way, I mean, you need to answer this, not me, but I'm assuming like you're never not a parent. So here is my brother getting this diagnosis, but also you have adult children. So like, what's it like in that parameter, like within that context of having adult children and then getting interesting news?
Well, when you guys were like in your 20s, of age, so to speak, and out of college and all that stuff, to me, I think the best thing you can look at is you have kids that you look forward to hanging out with. And so parents, if you're looking at your 25-year-olds going, oh God, I can't wait till they leave, maybe that's a problem. But with my kids, I'm like, hey, let's go out to the pub and have a pint and listen to a band and do this, that, and the other thing. It was great. And was, how to say this, like, you lived in California and your brother was in Colorado and you're away, but it was okay because I always knew that you guys were all right. I mean, and that I could jump on a plane and fly out there anytime and do whatever. And one of the reasons I really focused on teaching you guys stuff at an early age and encourage you to be independent was, I'm not going to be alive forever. And someday there's going to be a day where you need to turn around and just do it for yourself. So the sooner that day arrives, the better. So when you guys decided that you were moving off to other parts of the country, I'm like, yeah, I'm going to miss them, but children are not your property. They're your responsibility. So I've never been a hover parent, a helicopter parent. I've never been the kind of person who calls you every day of the week to go, what's going on? I mean, you and I might go weeks at a time before there's a phone conversation because I don't want to be that busybody parent going, oh, what you doing today? How's she raising her kid the right way? It's not my place. So I was glad to see you guys grew up independent, strong-willed, strong-spirited, and ready to go off and live other places and do what you wanted to do. And because then when you do have time to get together, you appreciate it more because it's not as abundant. And we're not close enough in proximity that we're bugging the crap out of each other. And then you have all this tension and stuff like that. Like you're out doing your thing, and Rebecca and I flying to California to see you, and we're out there. It was fun, catching up, that kind of stuff. So I've enjoyed you guys being adults. Then the second part of your question, getting the news that your brother had MS was one of the worst days ever. Because I spent 35 years working in the healthcare industry, so you don't have to explain to me what it means. I don't have these rose-colored glasses on and run around and go, oh, no, they'll give him a medication, he'll get better. He's not going to get better. The current state of medical technology is hopefully the clinical trial he's on will arrest it so that he can have a fulfilling life for a lot of years, but there's not even any guarantee of that.
Yeah.
So when it comes to things like that, the way I live my life, I prepare for the worst. I always work through mentally the worst case scenario and get ready for that. And then every day that it's better than that feels like a win. And there are plenty of people who go, oh, don't worry, there's something. I don't look at it that way. I'm like, my son's alive now. He's doing stuff he wants to do. But it makes you appreciate what you got because you're not going to have it forever.
Yeah. I mean,
take that to the bank, people.
Well, yeah.
I won't get on the whole transient being terminal philosophy rant on this podcast.
No.
It's temporary, people.
I mean,
enjoy it while you're here.
Everything is temporary, which is a general theme that I think I live my life by. Though in the moment, sometimes it feels so permanent, Certain things can seem very aggressive.
Isn't this ever going to end? Oh yeah, it's going to end. Just be patient. Right. It's going to end.
But I'm trying to go back to the thing you said about crap. I lost it. I had a thing and it's gone. Anyway, in what ways have we surprised you?
Oh wow, that's a good question. That is a really good question. Wow, one by one, I guess. I guess I'm not really surprised by Rita because when she had her first child, I figured she'd have several and end up doing the whole mom thing. So that's kind of like not surprising at all. Kind of surprised that you didn't go back and pursue anything in television that hard or music that hard. I felt very, I just met somebody the other day who graduated from college the same year as you, and they had a degree in something, and I'm like, well, why aren't you doing that? He's like, oh, I graduated the same year everything went to hell with finances, and the economy was at 2008, 2009, whichever year it was. And I'm like, yeah, you guys, I told him, I said, you guys graduated into just a garbage environment where, you all went to school and you spent all this money to get degrees and things you wanted to do, and you came out and all ended up working hospitality. Not that there's anything wrong with working hospitality, but then you had such a successful run in the restaurant business. I guess that happens with a lot of people, me included. You get going down this road in a job that you never really intended to be in, and you're making good money and life is working pretty well, and you kind of just keep going.
Yeah.
And then you look up and go, oh, well, I could stop and do that, but now I've built this lifestyle over here that requires this much income, and for me to go back and try to do that, I have to drop down 3 levels and go left.
Yeah.
And then go live in a 1-room, apartment and eat ramen every night. And at like 30 years old, then you don't really feel like doing that, do you? But then on the flip side of that with you, then as you and Dominic, you moved to Florida and stuff. And once you had Declan, you got back into doing this podcast and writing the books. So I guess I take back what I said before. You kind of are coming back to it now, just in your own time, in your own way.
Yeah.
Finish,
because you didn't talk about Jason yet.
No. What surprised me is, like, I was always so much into sports and stuff as a kid, and even as an adult playing soccer and stuff like that, that I'm kind of surprised that I had a son who was like, yeah, sports, whatever, and he's a big, strong dude. He could easily play other stuff, and he dabbled with it in high school, football and hockey and stuff. Mm-hmm. But the music always turned him on more. And, God bless him, all the bands he's played in and stuff that he's done with that, and sure as hell took it a lot farther than the rest of us.
Yeah, he's a good drummer.
And so I thought maybe he would have been more into playing football and stuff like that, but not really. But I guess the thing is, I had to be so career driven to make money to pay the bills, to basically support 2 households after the divorce. Yeah. And again, I won't devolve into all that, but it was pretty much a necessity. That none of you guys has been as financially career focused as I had to be. Mm. And part of me is happy about that, because I'd rather see you doing something you like than doing something you have to do forever. And in retrospect, would I have tried to break out of doing something I really didn't like doing for all those years and into something else? Probably should have started it sooner. Probably should have moved toward the music industry sooner. But by the time I decided to do it, the internet and Napster had already ruined it. So basically, but it is what it is. There you go. I'm not surprised that you guys were as independent as you were. I'm not surprised that you up and moved all over the country and did all this stuff. And not surprised that once your child grows up and is out of college and stuff, I'm sure you and your husband won't be sitting too still any place for very long either.
Never, no way.
No, the gypsy, the Gaelic gypsy runs deep in these hearts. I'll just say that.
I prefer Celt, not gypsy. That's a derogatory term. Come on.
There is, but there's what's his face? Tyson Fury, the heavyweight champion of the world.
Okay.
His DNA, he's genetically part of a group known as the Irish Gypsies.
Oh, but I like the term Celt.
Google him.
I will.
It wouldn't shock me if we dug down deep enough we weren't related to him.
Oh, right.
Yep.
I think it's interesting that you say, I remember I've always been like the theater person and the music and all that stuff, and very much creative outlet. And I remember feeling so stifled and conflicted, because you're making such good money in one, like what you're saying, especially in LA as an event manager, you're finally making good money, but it's like you're dead inside, yeah, this is great that you can support your life, but at the same time, and then graduating in a really tough climate. Yeah, she got rejection, but then it's like, at this point, I was like, I don't want to go work for somebody where I have to, and I won't get too far into the media stuff, but everything is very, selected and selective when it comes to stories and topics. And so having an outlet where I feel like I could be really good at it, but also do it my way is kind of kind of a nice thing.
I think you guys have been born in an age and grown into adults in a society that is more controlled than it was when I was your age, and that's not a good thing.
It's really different.
I think we are not the kind of people who easily assimilate into a corporate culture or just go along with what a boss tells you because, well, this is what the company wants. If we think it's really dishonest or unwise or stupid, we're just going to go, nah, I'm not doing that. Mm-hmm. And which tends to not bode well for trying to work for a large company where you're supposed to like toe the cultural line.
Right.
Doesn't work.
And I want to go back to a point you made earlier about how you there's lots of things you don't expect as a parent. Like, I think that's a really important thing to impress upon people, because you can have this ideal or an idea of what your kid will be like based on your spouse and yourself and how you grew up. But the overarching like theme, and I would hope all of these podcasts, is like, you just don't know what to expect as a parent, and you can never gauge. And the whole point of having these conversations is to understand that you need to expect the unexpected, because that's what's going to happen. Like, my son is obsessed with dresses. He's been obsessed with water since he was 6 months old, which is half the reason we moved to the beach. Like, I could have never guessed that my son was going to be obsessed with water. And he tells his father, "Don't play the piano, Daddy." And Dom and I both love music, and we love singing and all that stuff. So you don't know what's going to happen with your kid, and you don't know what's going to happen in life. And I think you just have to kind of like embrace it as it comes, you know? And I think like talking, if anybody's listened to the Differently Abled podcast, I love Joanne's story because she's a pastor's wife, and she talks about like getting this diagnosis of her son having Down syndrome. And at the end of the day, the reality is that her son wouldn't be her son if he didn't have Down syndrome. So it's not a negative thing. It's just DNA. And I think that's a good message to give overarchingly. It's like, just because someone's different doesn't mean, or your kids turn out different than you anticipated. You have to adjust as the caregiver and the adult in the situation to provide for them, because that's your job as a parent, is to give them something you didn't even know they needed. Whatever that may be. And that's hard, because I think when Dom and I have conversations, we struggle with, okay, if our son turns out, how do we relate with him? And it's very much a selfish thing, because we're white heterosexuals. This is how we see the world. This is how the world sees us. So if our son is different in any way, shape, or form, we're more concerned about how do we engage with him and relate to him. And you know what? That's our job to figure out as parents, is what it really comes down to. So I like that you were saying that about all these things that pop up, because as a parent, it is your responsibility to ebb and flow as your child grows.
You gotta let your child be who they are.
Yeah.
Try to steer them away from things that could do them serious harm, physical harm, or drugs and alcohol at an early age, and things that they're not prepared to handle. But you got to let them be them, because the bottom line is they're going to be them. And the more you try to repress what they are, the more mental health damage you're going to do. And then it's your job to kind of give them societal context of, well, you are who you are, and there's nothing wrong with who you are. But when you get out into the world, there are going to be some people who are closed-minded, and they are going to treat you like this. Other people are going to treat you like this. And it's not personal. It's about them. It's not about you. It's about their thought process, not about who you are. And you just got to kind of let it roll off your back and not worry about it.
That is a good
point. Because everybody's going to have an opinion, and whatever, have your opinion. But I mean, me. I am a firm believer. I'm a science guy. Life is about energy. It's all energy. Everything, literally, physically, is energy. Your bodies are made up of energy. And some people you just have an energetic click with, period. You want to breathe the same air in them. You want to be in the same room with them because they got something that's interesting all the time. And there's other people who it's just not there. For whatever reason, the flow doesn't connect. And there's nothing wrong with that. Just those are the people you don't spend as much time with. And your parent, to me, your job is to put your kid in a position where they can manifest the energy that is really them. And, be what they are, because you're gonna be what you are no matter what. So there's no sense of trying to get in the way of it.
Oh.
And yeah, I mean, how many times I say to you guys, I'm not going to tell you what you can't do. I'm just going to tell you that in my experience, if you drive down this road, there's a big cliff and you're going to go right off it, and you're going to have a painful learning experience. So you do what you want, but there's a cliff down there.
Sometimes we need those cliffs.
And that you've driven off a few. But look at you now. You bounce back.
Yeah. Sometimes
So that which does not kill us makes us stronger, right?
Well, I've had some help going off those cliffs at some points in time, so.
Yeah, sometimes people push you.
Yeah, heard that. Now you're a grandpa and you have
4
grandkids. What's that like?
4 of them. 4 of them between the ages of 15 and 3 now.
Yeah.
So they're kind of spread out.
Oh crap.
Without getting too deep into some family situations, and some of them I don't get to spend as much time with as I would like, but I find that it's really fun when they're little. Like Declan's age now, he just wants to run around and be goofy and stuff, and it's all good, man. Blow bubbles and spin around in circles, and song comes on, he wants to run around the house with his cape on and be a crazy man. It's all good. And then there's there seems like the elementary school years where they're way more interested in learning about their friends and all that stuff than they are about mom and dad and grandparents, and that's part of the curve too. But now the older grandchildren that are, getting into late junior high and high school age, is kind of coming back to where you have more serious conversations with them about, you got a 12-year-old, every time you talk to her, wants to have a conversation about socialism and capitalism and this and that and the other thing. At 12, I cared about that, and she's very politically and social justice aware and all this. So it's interesting. It's become very interesting at that age, where it's going to, and you can see the adult starting to emerge in them. So then I look forward to them becoming of age too, and taking them to a pub and having a pint and talking about whatever she wants to talk about.
Well, in certain countries you can do that to like 16 or 18, so there you go.
Oh, looks like we're going to Europe. I enjoy them as people. Again, they're not possessions. They're not just my grandchildren. They're people, and I think, unlike a lot of, I don't think it's as bad as it used to be when I was a kid, when kids should be seen but not heard. But unlike a lot of adults, I'm interested in what they have to say, because I've never been 12 years old in 2021. I've never been 12 years old surrounded by tech. When I was 12 years old, we were finding an empty field to play baseball in, or riding bikes, or doing something like that. It was a different. So it's interesting to hear from them what it's like growing up now, because it's so different than it was 50 years ago.
I mean, it's so different than it was 30 years ago
when you
I was little.
Yep.
Like when I was Patrick's age or Livy's age, like
what has happened in the past
basketball team.
The past 30 years of the internet age has the most astounding change in life on this planet that we have ever seen.
It's pretty crazy.
Some days, not in a good way.
Yeah, that's a podcast for a different day.
All the crazies are able to crawl out of the woodwork right onto your computer screen any given time.
God, yeah. Some of them, I'm just like, how do you have any traction? Dear God, help our.
That means there are other ones like them.
I know.
Scary.
Again, that's a different podcast for a different day. Speaking of technology, is there anything that you have encountered in this parenting ecosystem that you wish was available when we were kids?
I like the ability to get information and get educated about virtually anything, anytime, right from the comfort of your own home. You can Google or Wikipedia anything you want to know, and get reliable information. You can, if they want to know about the pyramids of Egypt, or they got to do a book report on the Taj Mahal, they can go get it. It's right there. That is really good. But as with anything humans come up with, we always find the way to turn it into something that is just a waste of time.
Yeah.
For what's coming up, all apologies, all due respect to people who make the video games and stuff, but it's out of control. I mean, kids spending hours and hours and hours a day. just staring at screens trying to play games. And I'm not going to say that there's no value to them, but there's not 6 hours a day worth of value to them. And the kids need to get outside more and get some fresh air and get physical exercise and interact with other kids face to face, not just through a computer console.
Yeah, that'll be interesting to do that psychoanalyzation, like. I
like to see
do that like cross segment of population about how that impact on kids.
It's interesting to have.
Yeah.
They have brain scans of kids from like when I was 6 years old, and then brain scans of kids now. It's just who plays video games all day and just compare them.
We are. I mean, I'm much better at it than Dominic. No offense, babe. Actually, take offense at limiting like just TV. Like I'm very adamant that Declan does not have a tablet. I'm very adamant that he doesn't spend more than an hour a day in front of television. And that's not always the case because, like, I mean, for example, this past weekend, the kid was at the beach at 9:30 in the morning. And then after nap, he went to the pool. So, like, Sunday, he was like, I'm going to sit here because I am so worn out from my outdoor activities. So you got to have a little bit of leeway. Yeah. But I also was like, I didn't have a tablet when I was 5 years old, so why should my kid, like, get him outside, let him be bored, let him be bored. Nothing wrong with being bored. I mean, God, if Da Vinci wasn't bored or Mozart wasn't bored, would we have some of the innovations that we've had, like musically and technologically? Probably not. So let your kid be bored. I think that's okay.
And the mental downtime of boredom is when you start looking around and it takes your brain to other places it might not otherwise go.
Yes. Yeah.
So I agree with you. Let him be bored. Yeah. Figure out now. You figure out something to do with this time.
So so he can come home and watch TV. That's the thing. But about a half hour, 45 minutes, like I'll just turn it off. And after dinner, there's no TV. That's like our rule. He has to have an hour of just like while we're cleaning up, he can help us clean up, or he can put on music and he can run around and he can dance and he can sing and like. He needs to just figure it out. He's got so much stuff that he doesn't even touch. It's like. Come on, kid. Get it together.
Habits formed now will last a lifetime.
Yeah.
And if his if the go-to thing with his downtime is to go right to some video screen and stare at it all day, that's what your life turns into. But if you're up and out and you're off to the beach and you're off to the pool and you're always doing something and you're physically active, that tends to become your lifestyle. Yeah. So the more you ingrain it now, the more it becomes how he wants to live.
Yep. And he's a funny kid too. Like in our experience, like sometimes he'll just like stop watching it, or he wants you to watch it with him, and you can't watch it with him. So then he's like, okay, I don't want to watch this because mommy and daddy aren't paying attention. So then he's like, I want to go outside on my trampoline. I want to play on my splash table. And you're like, great, let's turn off the TV. This is awesome. Let's look back at some of your parenting practices. Is there anything that you would change if you could? Or are there a lot?
It's just because when you're a parent young, and bear in mind, I come from a generation where a lot of our parents were teenagers when they had us.
That's a good
so literally, I was older when I had my first than my mother was when she had her fourth.
Oof. Ouch.
Yeah. So early on, when you're that young of a parent and you come from the, I'll say, backwards upbringing that I had, you're more of like a bang the table, my way or the highway, I told you to do it because I said so. But over time, you start to go, well, these kids are smart. And that's as you guys got to be in elementary school and stuff like that. And I'd say, what do you think you should do? And a lot of times you didn't know. You wanted somebody to tell you what to do because you didn't know what to do. By the time you were teenagers, I'd be like, look, here's what I think. From my experience. You make your decision, but if this happens to you that I'm telling you is probably what's going to happen, don't come crying to me because I warned you. I wish I had had that mindset earlier on, that I'd have been a wiser, more worldly parent when you guys were 3, 4, 5, and 6, which I became more when you were teenagers, and later. So, but that's another reason I say don't have kids too young. You need to go out and, like a fine wine, mature yourself first before you start having little ones.
Yeah, I think that's the thing. Some people are capable of raising kids younger, but they're also probably more mature. Like I have a friend who is our kids are the same age, and God, she's like 8 years younger than me, but she's definitely more mature than other 27-year-olds. Just, and had her baby when she was 24, but she's just always been that way, and not like angry about it. So I think it depends on the person, absolutely. But equally, I think that generally speaking, for most of the population, we have so much other shit to weed through because our parents are coming from a generation like that you're saying, which was very specific in how they reared their children, and those practices are not allowed today. So.
Well, I was just going to jump on that same thought. Is part of the way I was as a parent early on came from the way I was parented.
Yeah.
So you parrot the things you heard, and then you start saying to yourself, well, "Wait a minute, I hated it when they said that to me.
Yeah.
Why am I going to say it to my kid anymore? I'm not going to say it to my kid anymore." And another thing is like, I'll go to this now semi-taboo place of corporal punishment. I'm not opposed to that. Then I just don't think you should use it a lot, because if a kid knows every time he does something you're going to whack him on the backside, it kind of loses its shock effect.
Yeah.
You got to save a firm hand to the backside for when they've really done something, and then that is more likely to get their attention. Like, oh, wait a minute, I've really made mom mad now if she did that. To some parents, where that's your go-to, that every time a kid does something you whack them on the backside, it becomes normalized, and it means nothing to the kid. It does not register anymore.
Or it's taken too personally and does a lot more like internal damage. Well,
the thing is, when you're quote unquote punishing your child, what's the goal?
Yeah.
Is the goal because you're angry and you want to get revenge at your kid for making you angry, or is the goal to teach them something?
Yeah.
And you seldom teach them anything by whacking them.
Yeah.
I always found, tip here, parents, take away what they really, really love. The things that they really, really love, the things they spend their time with every day, take that away from them. When they can't have that, they tend to snap back into line way quicker.
And for the littles, I think it's more about their testing boundaries.
Oh, absolutely.
This is where Dom and I divulge sometimes in our parenting, is that you have to be consistent. And here's the other thing. It's okay for your kid to cry. It is 100% okay for your toddler to have a temper tantrum. They are learning how to manage emotions. And we don't remember managing our emotions because we were little when we started to learn. Or if, like me, it was beat out of you and you have to go through 20 years of therapy. So
I was not the one doing the beating, by the way.
Caveat, that's true. You were not the one doing the beating. I think you slapped me on the hand one time. And with the corporal punishment thing, there's definitely times I deserved to be slapped across the face when I was a teenager. 100%.
No parents ever slap someone across the face.
Oh God.
No, you shouldn't be doing that.
Yeah.
That's to me, that's a failure of parenting. When you get to the point now where you're, that was somebody else's rage coming out because they were unable to relate to their child. Like whenever you got a firm hand to the backside, that was to do nothing more than, for me anyway, to get your attention. Like, what?
Yeah.
Now you're listening to me now, because you weren't listening to me before. Now go to your room. Why you go to your room? Because you need some time to think about what's just happened here.
Why you're an asshole.
Or guess what? I'm taking this toy away from you. That's my favorite toy. I'm taking your toy away from you until you can be nicer to your brother and sister or whatever.
Yeah. Wow.
But the thing is, as a parent, and I was not this wise about it when I was 25 with 3 kids, is what am I trying to teach them? Mm-hmm. That's the goal. Teach them how to behave. Because you get right down to it, there is no right or wrong behavior. We're just animals and acting out and looking for our own creature comforts, so we know what we want. What you're trying to teach them is, like, to use your word, boundaries, so that they can function within a society made up of millions of other people. So that there will be people out there who will want to actually hang out with them and work with them and collaborate with them. You don't want them to reach their chronological adulthood and be so maladjusted that no one wants anything to do with them. So you want them to be raised to the point where they grow up and somebody else wants to spend time with them, so you don't have to.
Right. Yeah, I mean, and I think the boundaries are important, and self-inflicted things like, I mean, my husband, he has the best of intentions, but I think that learning grief and loss and poor decision making, even as a 3-year-old, can be beneficial. Like yesterday at the friggin' Target, Declan drops his muffin on the floor and goes, "This is dirty, let me throw it away." And then he gets mad that his muffin was thrown away, that he threw away, because now he wants his muffin. But it was dirty, it was on the floor. This is COVID, people. We're not picking up a dirty muffin off the floor.
Not in the store.
Not in the store, right? And so we're getting the checkout and Declan's melting down and Dom's like, "What can we get for him?" And I was like, "Nothing.
No.
We're not getting him anything." He dropped his muffin on the floor. He threw it away. This is a learning moment. Like, he's going to be upset and I'm going to talk him through it. And he's going to be mad at me and he's going to cry. And that's okay. He's allowed to cry. Placating him every time he does something that he doesn't like or makes a bad choice is only telling him that we can put a Band-Aid on a situation. And that's not, even at 3, he gets that. Our son is wicked smart already. And he can talk a circle around us at 3. So if he knows that mommy and daddy are going to make it better every time he makes a mistake, well, then we have what happens with white boys is their epitome of privilege comes to the surface, and then he's not listening to somebody else, and that's not okay.
Then he's manipulating your boundaries.
Yeah, little shit.
So next time, hold on to the muffin. Don't drop the muffin.
So I think that what we do today, and I don't even know the ramifications, but I follow my instincts and I'm very steadfast in like my reaction to things in terms of our discipline, because discipline doesn't mean what people think it means. It's like discipline is like a redirection of behaviors to follow a certain like what you were saying, societal like acceptance. You know? So if we're redirecting our children on a regular basis, and that's what we've decided is discipline, that doesn't mean you need to supplement things. It means that you need to make sure they understand repercussions and ramifications and what their choices mean.
I mean,
that's what I'm going for here. That's what I'm going for.
You're trying to raise a functional adult. Yeah.
And unfortunately, let them be little. I want my son to be little, but the foundation starts now. Like, I remember climbing a tree in the Collinsville house when I was 3. I remember going in that dirty basement. I remember going in that terrible attic. And we moved from there when I was 4, and I remember a lot. I remember gutting the friggin' catfish. You know, I was like 2.5, 3 years old, and these are the memories that I have.
It's in there.
So he already knows, and he, at least in our experience, Declan can connect the dots. He's really good about going A plus B equals C already. So if I know that about my son, I have to lean into that because I need to make sure he understands going forward. You know, no means no. Not only yes means yes. Silence, you know, like just little things like when it comes to consent. Like, I think consent is a big thing in our household. If he doesn't want to be touched, we don't touch him. If he doesn't want to be tickled, we don't tickle him, because consent starts with respecting the person in which you want consent from. And if he can feel respected by his parents, he will in turn respect people, I hope, when they say no thank you, or I don't like that.
Well, there's the thing is, this is, I don't think most parents even realize this. So rewind this part and watch it again, folks. There's the material, physical world, and then there's the conceptual, thought, ideological world, and they're not the same world. So it's important for them to understand there's what goes on in my head, and then there's when you actually touch something or somebody.
Yes.
As I had a professor once years ago in a philosophy class that said, I have every right to swing my fist, but that right stops at your face. So right there, that's not a crime. That is. And you need to learn the difference between thinking about something and doing something. Yes. You need to learn to respect not just everybody else, but everything else on the planet. And if parents do that, like you say, your son, he is wicked smart. Then that raises the bar for him. You should lean into it. You should push. Put more on his plate sooner because he can handle it. And the sooner you learn these concepts, the sooner you build on top of these concepts, the wiser of an adult you're going to be.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the more people
smarter than me.
And the more people who are going to work with you and be friends with you and stuff like that, because they've seen that you have intelligence and respect, and you have a sense of your place in the universe. Not to get too philosophical there, and then people want to be around people like that.
Yeah.
So there you go.
I think emotional IQ is something that is the people that like my age that are having kids are leaning into, because we feel like our parents didn't understand that was a very essential part of existence. And understanding that our emotions and what you're saying is like, you can have a thought, an idea, and an impulse, but you have to manage that. Like we are the most intelligent beings. I'm putting that in air quotes on the planet because we understand. Maybe. We have I think orcas are probably more self-aware than we are, but
octopuses, octopi. Sorry,
octopi. Yeah, we talk a lot about octopi in this house. Jesus Christ. And I think that for as far as we know, as a human species, we're the most intelligent mammal on the planet. We'll put that in quotes, right? And that's because we have self-awareness. So I think giving my son self-awareness and giving him context for things is really important. And also, part of the reason I started volunteering is also so that he understands what it means to give back. Like, not everybody has the life we have, and I think it's incumbent on us to be an olive branch for people who might need a little help every once in a while, because everybody needs help once in a while. So I think instilling these things even at a young age for him, even though he might not grasp it or understand it, I think it's really important to give him these concepts and ideas so that he can build on them earlier and understand his place in the world.
I forget who said, might have been Thomas Paine, who said, "No man is an island."
Yeah.
The thing is, everybody, especially in our country, our society, talk about their rights. Well, you don't really have any. Get over that. But there's a lot going on in our world today. Then I know you have concerns about having a young child and where things are going. So the word I kind of hammer on a lot is sustainable. You want to try to grow a sustainable society. And we don't have one right now. There are too many people who don't have enough, and far too few people who control way too much, especially with wealth. And it's historically, when there's as big a wealth gap as there is in the United States right now, it doesn't end well. And I just had this conversation last month on some podcasts with some breweries and stuff, one in particular over in England. And it's like, unless your company has part of their corporate charter being that their business is not only to make a profit, but also to help contribute to a healthy, sustainable society, then they need to rethink their mission statement. Because what good does it do to build this company that makes all this money when the world around you is falling apart?
Yeah. 100%.
So if you got a huge percentage of your population that's struggling to live week to week, while half a dozen people are worth more than the rest of the country combined, it's a problem. And so if we can raise young people to understand that they are part of something bigger than themselves, and it's okay to go start a business and make money, but you need to help make your community be strong too, or else it's all kind of pointless. So if you can teach them that kind of intelligence, and I'll throw something else. I got another theory for you, ladies and gentlemen, is like, I think intelligence and emotion are parts of the same thing. Like, picture a thermometer, and that it's all one scale, because it's all about information that we receive.
Yeah.
Some of it's slowly over time that we have to absorb analytically, and some of it's immediate and urgent. And things that where, let's say, you look over your shoulder and you see a grizzly bear, you have a sudden receipt of information and a sudden rush of emotion called extreme fear. but you have just intaken some information, and it is your processing system is saying that's dangerous. You need to get out of here. Or the hot stove, handling the hot stove. That's hot. You need to not touch that or it's going to cause physical damage. But you don't think through that the whole time. It's just a reaction. But it's still part of you're gathering information. It's being processed at different speeds in different ways. And if it's something that you have received the information, like something hits you or you get cut or something like that, you have an immediate reaction, that's your body just responding to stimuli, and you feel the emotion, but it's still part of the whole information gathering and processing, situation. But other stuff, like you read information or you watch a television program or you listen to a podcast, and it's more slow and more analytical. But to me, it's still all receipt of information and processing it, understanding what it means to you in your life. And again, some of those things happen in a split second. Some of them take some of us 60 years to figure out, right?
Ain't that the
but
truth?
It's all part of it. To me, I think I'm all about erasing lines. Well, this is emotion, this is intelligence. It's all kind of part of a continuum as far as I'm concerned. These are men and these are women. Well, guess what? They're all still people, These are black people and these are white people. Well, they all have 23 chromosomes. They all walk upright. They all work the same way. So how about we just start removing the separators and start...
Hey. There's some people that have an extra chromosome, okay?
Yeah, they're special.
They're still people.
They're special.
Yeah, for real though.
Super special people. I'm not one of them. Not super special.
Probably more enlightened. Let's be real. One last thing. Do you have any unsolicited advice for new parents?
Don't panic. and seriously, panic does no good. And you know what? Trust yourself. I mean, I see so many people that think they can't do anything unless they read somebody else's book about it.
Yeah.
No, these are generic books of concepts. This is your kid, right? Get to know your kid, learn to read their signs, but trust yourself as a parent. Trust. I mean, you've been being trained to be a parent your whole life by watching your own parents. So. Hopefully more quickly than me, you will process the things that you're doing as a parent going, well, wait a minute, I didn't like that when they were doing it to me. Maybe I should do it differently. Think about that when they're young, they're going through, especially their toddler years, their preschool years. And what kind of person do you want them to be when they grow up, and try to help them get there. But at the same time, I guess to be more concise, is you're trying to let them manifest what and who they really are while preparing them to deal with the rest of society. Mm-hmm. So, and if between the age of 0 and 18, if you can get those concepts home about their own individuality, but being part of a community, you've probably succeeded.
Well,
there you go.
My kid's screwed, but the rest of you might have some hope.
You know what? You overcame, and I think he's starting from a better place than you. So there's hope. There's hope.
Yeah.
There's always Barbados, right?
Or Aruba, or some random other island.
There's always an island, and a charter tour and a helicopter. That's it. and lots of rum.
Hey, I guess if we're on the Caribbean, that would be our drink of choice. Is rum.
It's rum.
100%. Yes.
Trust me.
Yeah, you would know.
I would know.
I'm the mom who knows nada. My name is Brianna. Special thanks to my dad for sharing his perspectives on parenting with us in celebration of Father's Day. Yay. Happy Father's Day to all the dads out there. We don't forget you. You can find us at mamaknowsnada.com. And until then, have fun learning all the things you didn't know you could eat it to know.